So now we go to maybe the statistics, the findings broadly. I also indicated that because the key variable we are linking to nation building is poverty. I told you that across Africa, at least 1 in 5 citizens, adult citizens, reported deprivation in accessing these basic necessities of life in the course of the year. But the good news for nation building, in a way, is that on the whole, across the board, attitudes are pro-nation building. That is, if you take the poor and the not so poor together, attitudes are generally supportive of nation building. Now the question is, if you disaggregated the group into two, between the not so poor and the poor, what do you get? When it comes to feelings of pessimism about the future of the nation, there is definitely a spread between the poor and the not so poor. That there is roughly a difference of 11%. So I can just imagine that if we improve the poverty situation of African citizens by a notch, you're going to get tremendous improvement in the prospect for nation building in those countries. And that's the significance of that finding. The other interesting thing is that even though across the board you find that attitudes are supportive of nation building, the country variations are significant. Some countries have fairly pronounced differences between the not so poor and the poor when it comes to their attitudes to nation building and their perceptions, their opinions on the kinds of attributes that are important for nation building. And that in general, between the poor and the not so poor, you are talking of a 5% difference on a number of nation building attributes if you take out the perceptions about the overall direction in which the country is going. So it's still pretty serious. So again, on the question of whether people identify themselves primarily with the nation or with their ethnic group, again, the good news is that by far, most Africans identify themselves with the nation rather than the ethnic group. In fact, there is the percentages in all countries of citizens who identify themselves primarily as ethnics is quite negligible, 5% and under. But when you break it between the not so poor and the poor, then you see a gap. That in general, the poor have a tendency in most countries, in the average country, to define themselves as more ethnic than national. Almost nobody is exclusively ethnic. But when you give them the choice between, when you say, well, you can be ethnic and you can be national, the poor tend to go a little bit more for the ethnic than the national. And again, we think a way to close that gap is to reduce the poverty experience of ordinary Africans.